All right, let's talk about one of the coolest stories in all of astronomy, how we found Pluto. It's this epic tale of mistaken identity, a hunt that lasted for decades, and it turns out a massive, stunning cosmic coincidence. Because get this, finding the ninth planet, it was a giant, magnificent mistake.
So, how in the world do you discover a planet by mistake? Think about it. It sounds impossible, right? You're looking for something specific, you find it, but it turns out you were completely wrong about why you were even looking. That's the paradox. That's the detective story we're going to unravel today. All right, so to solve this mystery, we've got to rewind the clock. And I mean way back. We're not even starting with Pluto. Nope. Our story kicks off in 1781 with the discovery of Uranus. And almost as soon as they found it, astronomers realized something was off. Something was really wrong.
See, here's the thing you have to understand about astronomers, especially back then. They are meticulous. They had done all the math using Newton's super famous laws of gravity to predict exactly where Uranus was supposed to be in the night sky. But it wasn't there. It was always just a little bit off course. It was like some invisible cosmic giant was out there, gently pulling on it, tugging it off its path.
Now, this little wobble led astronomers to an absolutely brilliant idea. They thought, what if there's another planet, something even further out, and its gravity is what's causing all this? And you know what? They were right. They did the math, pointed their telescopes, and boom, in 1846, they found Neptune. What a huge win for science, right? Case closed. Except it wasn't. Even after they accounted for Neptune's gravity, the numbers still didn't quite add up. Uranus was still wobbling just a tiny, tiny bit.
So now, astronomers were totally convinced there had to be another planet out there, a ninth one, a huge, unseen world that they started calling Planet X. This was the final suspect, the ghost in the machine they believed was messing with the orbits of both Uranus and Neptune. And with that, the hunt was on.
And this wasn't just some casual search. It became a full-blown obsession. You had this wealthy American astronomer, Percival Lowell, who was so into it he built his own observatory in Arizona just to find it. He searched for years and years, but sadly died in 1916 without finding Planet X. Then, 13 years later, the observatory hires this 23-year-old kid from Kansas, a self-taught amateur named Clyde Tombaugh, to pick up the search. And his job? Wow, it was just unbelievably tedious. He had to take these giant photographic plates of the sky, night after night, and then compare them with a machine, just looking for one tiny little dot that moved.
So imagine doing that for months on end, just staring, blinking, comparing photos. But all that incredibly hard work, all that dedication, it was about to pay off in a huge way. It looked like the mystery of Planet X, this puzzle that had stumped astronomers for nearly a century, was finally solved.
Okay, so picture this. It's February 18th, 1930. Tombaugh is at his workstation, flipping back and forth between two photos taken in January. And then he sees it. A tiny, faint little speck of light that wasn't there before. It had jumped. And that was it. That was the sign. It was exactly what he'd been looking for. He found it. The news went everywhere, and the world just went wild. We had found a ninth planet.
The excitement was absolutely electric all over the globe. And the name? This is my favorite part of the story. It actually came from an 11-year-old girl over in England. Her name was Venetia Burney, and she suggested Pluto, the Roman god of the underworld, because this new planet was so far out there, in the cold and the dark. It was perfect. And the name totally stuck.
Okay, so case closed, right? We found the culprit. Well, not so fast. Because this is where our cosmic detective story takes a really sharp turn. See, everyone assumed Pluto was the massive Planet X they'd been hunting for. But as our telescopes got better and better over the years, our suspect, it started to shrink. It got smaller and looked a whole lot less guilty.
So, right when they found it in 1930, they pretty much had to guess its size. And the guess was, hey, it's gotta be huge to be pulling on Uranus, so maybe it's about the size of Earth. But then, fast forward to 1948, we've got better telescopes, better measurements, and suddenly the estimate drops. A lot. Okay, so maybe it's not Earth-sized. Maybe it's more like the size of Mars. Still a big planet, for sure, but you can see the first cracks starting to appear in the theory. And then came the real bombshell. In 1978, astronomers discovered Pluto's biggest moon, Charon. Now, why is that a big deal? Because by watching how a moon orbits a planet, you can calculate the planet's mass with incredible precision. And when they did the math, oh boy, the results were just stunning. Pluto wasn't the size of Mars. It wasn't even close. It was tiny, just 0.2% of the mass of Earth. There was simply no way this little icy world could be pushing around giants like Uranus and Neptune.
So, this just blew the whole case wide open again. If Pluto was way too small to be Planet X, then what the heck was pulling on Uranus and Neptune? Did this mean there was another planet still out there? A real Planet X, still hiding in the dark? The original cosmic crime scene was active again, and the main suspect was innocent.
The answer, when it finally came, was almost an anticlimax, but a fascinating one. In 1989, the Voyager 2 spacecraft did a flyby of Neptune, and for the first time, we got a super-duper precise measurement of Neptune's mass. And it turned out, the original calculations from the 1800s were just a tiny bit off, by only 0.5%. That's it. When scientists went back and plugged that new correct number for Neptune's mass into their equations, the wobble in Uranus's orbit, it completely disappeared. There was no mystery. There was no Planet X. The entire century-long hunt was all based on a simple rounding error.
And that right there is the incredible punchline to this whole story. It means that astronomers were looking in pretty much the right part of the sky for a planet that didn't exist for a reason that was based on a mistake, and they found a planet anyway. Clyde Tombaugh's discovery of Pluto was just a complete 1 in a billion cosmic accident.
So, what do you do with a planet that was discovered by pure chance? Well, Pluto's story was far from over. In fact, just as we were starting to wrap our heads around this cosmic mistake, its story was about to take another huge, dramatic turn. This wasn't the end of the book. It was just the start of a whole new chapter.
So, jump forward to 2006. The International Astronomical Union, basically the official rulemakers for space stuff, decided to define what a planet actually is. They came up with 3 rules. Rule 1, it has to orbit the sun. Check, Pluto does that. Rule 2, it has to be big enough for its own gravity to make it round. Check, Pluto is a sphere. But then there's Rule 3, it must have cleared its neighborhood, meaning it has to be the gravitational big boss of its own orbit. And that's where Pluto fails. It hangs out in this crowded part of space called the Kuiper Belt with lots of other icy objects. So just like that, it was reclassified as a dwarf planet.
And for decades, after all the drama, that's kind of how we saw Pluto. It was this distant, probably boring little ball of ice and rock. A curiosity, sure, but probably not that interesting up close.
But then 2015 happened. After a journey that took 9 years and crossed 3 billion miles, NASA's New Horizons spacecraft finally arrived. It flew right past Pluto. And the pictures it sent back didn't just change our view of Pluto, they absolutely blew our minds. We were so wrong.
I mean, what New Horizons showed us was just breathtaking. This wasn't some dead, cratered rock. We saw a giant, heart-shaped glacier made of frozen nitrogen that's actively flowing. We saw towering mountains made of solid water ice that are as tall as the Rockies. There are even ice volcanoes that might spew a slushy mix of water and ammonia. And get this, Pluto has a thin blue atmosphere, a surface with all these complex red and orange colors. And scientists now think there might be a huge liquid water ocean sloshing around deep beneath its icy shell. This little world was alive.
And that really is the beautiful irony of Pluto's story, isn't it? It was found by accident while we were looking for a ghost planet that didn't exist. It was demoted by a committee because it didn't fit our neat little rules. And yet, it turned out to be one of the most complex, dynamic, and surprising worlds in our entire solar system. I guess it's just a powerful reminder that the universe doesn't really care about our definitions. It's always going to be more strange, more wonderful, and more full of surprises than we can ever imagine.